All right. Hi. This is going to feel really strange because I've never done anything like this before, but if you're seeing this, you know that my name is Alexandra, but I'm going to tell you anyway. My name is Alexandra, and I'm making this video because something has been happening to me for exactly a month now, and it's kind of complicated to explain, so I'm just going to explain it once for hopefully a lot of people to see at one time and for everybody to understand instead of having to tell the same story over and over again. But before I go into that, I just want to start out by saying that the reason I'm making this video is primarily because I want God to be glorified, and I say that in such a way that makes it seem like I have the power to do that, but the thing is, like, God will be glorified no matter what, and I love him, so I want him to be glorified through my actions. And I think that by telling you this story of what's been happening to me, God might be glorified through maybe the way that you care about it, the way that you see my testimony through it and you love God more, or you say that I love God and what he's done in my life, or even that you want to glorify him by, somehow being a part of my life in some way. So that's why I want to do this, because I want God to be glorified, and I know that he will be no matter what. So it's kind of redundant, because even if I don't do this, God would be glorified, but I think he will be by me doing this too. So that being said, I'm going to start the story about what's happening with me. I guess you could say the hand thing. So exactly 1 month ago, I believe April 12th, I think it's April 12th. It was 4 Tuesdays ago. I woke up at about 6:30 to go to yoga with my friend Molly. And she picked me up and we were going to do 7 a.m. yoga. So I went to the gym with her and I got started doing the yoga. And if you know anything about yoga, it was just the beginning. So we were doing downward dog, which is basically like a little table position where you have your body in a V. And it was just at the beginning of yoga. So nothing strenuous had been happening, no weird like moves or anything. Also, I'm not terribly awful at it, so not so hard for me to do. And as I was doing it, I noticed this weird sensation that happened in my right arm that kind of just went all throughout, and I noticed that my hands weren't working like as well as I didn't recognize that there was anything wrong, but it was difficult for me to do things. So I knew something was wrong, but I figured it would just go away. So for the next hour, I continued to try to do it, all the yoga that is, and I started noticing that I couldn't do chaturanga, which is kind of if you go into like a push-up position and then upwards, and then you go back down and up to the back to the V downward dog thing, and I wasn't able to do that. Like, I just didn't have the physical strength in my upper body, which was really strange because that was the strongest my upper body's ever been literally in my entire life, because I've been climbing a lot and marching band, carrying heavy things. My upper body was toned like the most ever in my life at that point. So it was very strange that I couldn't do it, and I couldn't do warrior 2, which was simply just holding both of my arms out because my right arm was so weak that I couldn't hold it up, and I was like, what the heck's going on? But I figured it would just go away, because that's always been my philosophy when it comes to health or body things, ailments, or anything. If anything's wrong, just ignore it till it goes away. And for almost 21 years, that mentality has pretty much worked. So that's what I figured. At the end of the hour, I talked to the instructor of yoga and I told her what was happening, and she just said that it probably wasn't a big deal and that maybe it was a pinched nerve or something. So I was like, okay, and I figured, again, ignore it until it goes away. So I left the gym and I waited for an hour for my friend Bethany to show up because we were going to go running. And I had been having problems with my knees, but I thought they were for the most part better. Also, at this point, that's kind of irrelevant because they're a bigger fish to fry. So I was waiting for her and I was doing some research for gear, hiking gear on my laptop. And I started noticing that my hands weren't typing. And I was like, what the heck? Why can't I type? And it was really weird, but I just thought it was no big deal. And my friend Bethany showed up an hour later, so this is like almost 9 o'clock in the morning. And as I tried to greet her, I was going to do a peace sign, but I used my left hand. And I noticed that I couldn't do a peace sign. And I was like, really strange. Like, why can't I do a peace sign? And I was like, that's weird. And I forgot to mention, right afterwards, my friend Molly had prayed for me because I told her what was happening. And I wasn't sure if it was a big deal, but I told her might be spiritual warfare. And she's like, that's what I was thinking. So she prayed for me. Then I waited for Bethany to show up. Then we went to the treadmills and we ran. And I ran for about 15 minutes, which I also run all the time. If you know me, I'll run like 5 miles and it's no big deal. But my knee started hurting so bad that I had to stop and I was limping, which I was like, okay, my hands aren't working, I can't run anymore, what the heck? So I waited for her to finish running, and then we went to the locker room, and I I started to notice more and more things were like happening funny. Like I couldn't do this I couldn't like move my right arm the way I wanted to. It was feeling kind of numb, that this hand was not doing things I was trying to do. And I was telling my friend Bethany about it, and she said, you know what, while I shower, just talk to my mom on the phone, because she's a physical therapist and she might know what to do. And I was just like, oh, it's probably not that big of a deal. But then I went to fix my ponytail, and I went over to the mirror to put my hair down and like tie it up, and that kind of like, I broke at that moment, because as I tried to put the ponytail holder on my hair, I wasn't able to. Because if you see, I can do this, but with this hand, I can't do the same. I can't curve it. I can bend it, but I can't quite. I wasn't able to. I can put my hand against my head and flatten it and make it do the curve shape, but I can't actually smooth my hair out manually. And so I wasn't able to open the hair tie, because once I have my hand like that, I can't open it, so I couldn't tie the ponytail. And I just kind of broke down. I was like, I can't put my hair in a ponytail. And she just tried to calm me down and did it for me. But that was very overwhelming. Like, didn't know anything was wrong, and then suddenly I can't put my hair in a ponytail. And I was like, what the heck? And talking about it can be hard too, just because I'm like reliving it as I'm telling it. But I ended up calling her mom on the phone, and she started asking me a bunch of questions. Shout out to Julie McDonald, you're awesome. And she started asking me a bunch of questions about symptoms, and I realized that I think she was asking me things that would have been symptomatic of a stroke, which I don't think I had, and I don't think she thought I had either. But regardless, she told me you need to see someone as soon as possible, because you don't want to risk having permanent damage done to your body if something bad did happen. So I said, okay, I'll do that. Well, no, that's not what I said. That's eventually what I said, but because of my I don't have a car, because of my ignore it till it goes away mentality, because of my I don't really go to the doctor, so why would I go to the doctor now? Like, this is probably not a big deal. All those ways that I think, I was like, okay, well, just because I should go see someone doesn't mean it's as simple as just going to see someone. That's not how it works. Like, it's a process. Like, I would have to figure out who to go see, how would I pay for that? Do I have insurance? What even is insurance? And how am I going to get there? And so I was just like, I don't know. And she's like, you really need to go see someone. And she said, go to the ER because they can't refuse you. And I was like, okay. And then she was like, find a ride. And I was like, okay. And honestly, I probably would not have gone. But Bethany, her daughter, offered to take me. And so she did. She took a shower, and then we went to the ER. We were there from about 11:30 to about 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And they did a CAT scan of my neck, and they did an x-ray of my knee. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they prescribed me some medication and basically sent me on my way. And they were like, okay, here's this medication. I was like, but like, it's still here. Like, what am I supposed to do? They're like, you'll be fine. I'm like, but there are days I can barely walk. I like, my hands, like, what am I? They're just like, take this medication. And I was like, oh, okay. So I left, and I went home, and pretty sure I slept the rest of the day. I woke up the next morning, and it was still there, which was a bummer, because I was really hoping like maybe I would just wake up and it would be gone, but it wasn't gone. And so figured out some things. Tried to figure out some things, figure out what was trying to figure out what the next step would be and what was happening. I didn't know if I should tell people whether or not it was going to be a big deal or not. And I did not get the medication right away, because money is not really something that is just indispensable. Is that the word? Indispensable? Money is not just an indispensable thing that I can throw around. And I don't have a job because, well, that's another story, but I don't have a job. So I can't just spend money whenever I want. I'm blessed to have my dad who pays my rent, and my mom on occasion gives me money for some bills, but I don't have a job because I did have a job, but I lost it for reasons unknown. And now, since I don't have a car, I can't just work wherever I want. And the job I did have was on the street where I lived. Since I don't have that now, the only thing I really can do for money is not a basic job. And at this point, I couldn't even if I wanted to, because you need your hands for everything. So I can't have a regular job because I can't really use my hands. So I was figuring out what I needed to do next and kind of just hoping it would go away, but it wasn't going away. So on Wednesday, I went to my rehearsal for Wind Symphony, and that was the day after all this had happened. And I was already a little bit worried that it would not it would not work, me playing my instrument. But I went to rehearsal anyway, because that's what you do. You go to rehearsal when you're part of an ensemble. And I sat down and I was trying to put my reed on my instrument, and I couldn't quite do that. And I was trying to put my instrument together, and I couldn't quite do that because if I haven't described this at this point, my right arm kind of feels like half numb all the time and is incredibly weak. I mean, weak to the point where I can't push down on soap nozzles and actually press down all the way unless I put my body strength into it. And this hand is kind of stiff and partially numb, and this hand just simply will not open. And if I straighten out my wrist, if I put it down, I can open it to some degree. As soon as I start to straighten my wrist, my fingers just go limp, and the more I raise my wrist, the more limp my fingers get. So I was already worried that I wouldn't be able to play my instrument, and sure enough, I've succeed in putting my instrument together, and I try to warm up, and my fingers just can't do it. I just can't play the notes, and that was probably one of the worst things, because I had to sit there and realize that I couldn't do it, and my dad was going to be flying in the next week to see my concert, and I couldn't play my instrument, and I broke down in the middle of rehearsal.